Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. So I've seen a lot of people complaining about the FC meta, FC all-in pushes that have been really popular recently due to guys like Red Foster, kind of perfecting the fast castle build. And it also got popular because myself, Viper, T90, etc. have been making videos about it and people are eager to try it out. And because it's a very effective strategy to climb elo fast, people are actually abusing it quite a lot. And I saw this post on Reddit that I'm going to go through first, and then I'm going to show you guys exactly how to stop it, exactly what its weaknesses are, and I'll even show you guys exactly how to do it. I'm going to show you guys the build myself, and I actually did a lot of research for this build. I actually saw the build done, perfectly by Red Foster, and then I went in and practiced it myself. So I am pretty confident this is like the best way to do the strat, and it's important, guys, when we want to learn how to counter something, we first have to understand what it is. This is the same thing I do myself. When I want to learn how to counter something, I first learn how to do it myself, and then I find its weaknesses, and then I think about something to counter it. I'll do all the work for you guys, and I'll just present you the information so you guys can be well equipped to take on the ladder. And yeah, we're gonna go ahead and read the segment, and then we'll hop into it. Also, this was supposed to be a Patreon video, but I decided because there was so many people that are like struggling with it, and it seems to be a widespread thing, and I do care about the ladder health a lot. I'm just going to make it public on YouTube, but I'm going to be doing it with the same style of Patreon, unedited video. So obviously it's going to be maybe longer, but it should be clearer and easier to follow. So just pay attention, and if you guys are struggling with this, or if you guys are just curious about the information, curious about the current meta, what's being abused, this should be a fun video for you guys as well. So unedited, but I'll go through everything in good time. This is how I like to do the Patreon videos. And it takes a dedicated ear, but if you are that, you're going to benefit a lot. So the post says what to do about the current FC meta. So sub 1500 elo on the ladder is FC, fast castle, in a majority of games on Arabia. This was not the case just 6 months ago. That's true. What can be done about it? Going full feudal against that seems to lose every time. People are getting up quicker than ever. Every scout or blacksmith tech is a liability, not an asset. A forward tower is stone, not sold, delaying you as well. So here he's highlighting the fact that everything you try to do to delay the enemy from getting fast castle delays you more, thus putting you out of the game. This is somewhat true, but somewhat, there is some room for improvement on that one. I'm honestly confused how to counter this. The only method seems to be naked FC yourself as soon as you see that's what they're doing. But that's so boring. Is that really the best way? It also ends up being whoever has the better eco bonus civ wins the FC war. Interesting. I will touch about that later on. Time for the market abuse to end. This has nothing to do with market abuse. This strategy, sorry to say, has nothing to do with market abuse. Yes, they are using the markets, but that's not what enables the strategy, and I'll get into that as well. Before the posters of Get Good, my problem with the meta is yes, it's technically bad play, and the best players will push you and counter it, but that's the problem. It's infinitely easier to execute the FC than it is to punish it. A 1k elo can do an FC near perfectly, while a 1400 will struggle to counter it. This is the best point of the post, and when I saw him write this, I knew I wanted to make a video because I knew this guy is at least using his mind. He's thinking about the issue. He's not just complaining. This is not a rant. This is a guy genuinely curious about what can be done about it because he recognizes the actual problem. And this is something I also touched about myself. My problem with this FC rush, and the reason why I don't have it available in Patreon and Twitch sub builds, is because it's very abusable. I don't want to teach people how to do it without showing the counter, because people would just take it and climb 400 elo instantly, and the only way to compete is to learn how to do it yourself, and that's not a healthy ladder to promote. And so this is why I personally don't promote this, at least directly as far as the guide. But it's been spread, and it's been spread because it affects the pro level. Like, I had to learn about this because it could actually beat me too, believe it or not. This is not just a low elo problem. This is an everybody problem. And I will say that, pretty much everyone playing ladder will be affected by this one way or another. And the worst elo that this is really going around is not sub 1500. It's actually 2k2. But everyone's having a problem with it. So let's go ahead and teach you guys how to counter it. All right, so we'll switch to this scene here. Cool. So before we get started, I want to lay down some ground rules, okay? So the idea with this strategy is that a couple things. Sorry, my camera's a bit trolly here. All right. The idea behind the strategy is there's a couple criteria that needs to be met for it to work. Number one, you need to have a civilization that has a cheap unit that's also really strong. Okay, hold on. Let me redo that one. It's not a cheap unit. It's a unit that costs no food. It has to cost wood and gold. Very specific. It can't cost food. So that's what you need. You need a strong unit that doesn't cost food in early castle age that's available to you. Number two, you need some kind of eco bonus or some kind of resource saving or some kind of tempo, tempo power spike in the first 15 minutes. Now let's take a look at the best civs, or some of the best civs that can make use of this. Bengalis, the Ratha, strong unit, doesn't cost food. You also get extra villagers. If you look Bohemians, you have an eco bonus and you have a strong unit that doesn't cost food. We have Burmese, you have a strong eco bonus and a strong unit like the Rambai that doesn't cost food. So you can see how these two things are present in every single one of these rushes. Like Huang Rush with Celts, kind of similar. You get into siege, doesn't cost food, and you have a good eco bonus. All the rushes are similar. Like let's just go through the list real quick. I'm not going to name all the civs. Korean, same concept. Portuguese, same concept. You have a good eco bonus, strong unit that doesn't cost food. It's all the same. All of them have this exact criteria, with maybe the only exception being the Sicilians rush, but that one is not as strong as the other ones, and that one is completely different in terms of how it plays out. So that's not worth really discussing. It's really the other ones, the FC unique unit or FC siege monk pushes. Like Romans can do it really well because they get cheaper scorpions, eco bonus. So it also meets the criteria. So that's the criteria you need to know beforehand. And the reason why this is important to know is that you need to be able to foresee if your opponent can even go for the strat. There are some civs in the game that just can't do it. Like, for example, even if you take Spanish, the best unique unit civ, or one of the best unique unit civs in the game at the moment, they can't do this because Conquistador, although being strong, it costs food. And you can't get food easily in early castle age when doing a fast castle. It's just not possible. You can get a little bit, but you can't make past like 2-3 conks. Whereas the other units, it's really easy to get food, wood and gold, and you just take no food. You cut villager production, all your existing villas on gold and wood, and then you can use the market whenever you need to buy food for an upgrade, and that's how it's done. So that's the idea behind it. Now I'm going to go ahead. I'm just trying to standard AI just so I don't get rushed or anything. Now I'm going to show you guys the build, and I'm going to also talk about the weaknesses at all points of the build. And I'm also going to talk at the end of the build, once you see how it's done, I'm going to show you guys how to counter it and all of its weaknesses. I'm going to show you guys how to counter it if you know it's coming, which is really easy, by the way, and also how to counter it when you don't know it's coming. And this will also be a video that will showcase how me as a pro player thinks about the game. Whenever I see a strategy that I'm confused about, or I'm getting, caught off guard with, or I'm losing to, if I lose to any strat, point blank period, if I lose to any strat, I'm doing this exact method to it, figuring out where the weakness was and how I can counter it, because I don't like to lose twice to the same thing. Anyway, let's hop in. So I'm using Burmese here just to showcase you. It's, again, one of the civs that can do it, but it could be any of the civs. You start out normally. I'm going to do the exact build. And like I said, I did look into this, so I'm pretty confident I have the right build. And there are some differences between the civs. You have to obviously keep in mind that, Bengalis might do it a little differently. Burmese might do it a little differently. All that kind of stuff. But the basic idea is that we do a 23+2 fast castle. Maybe 22+2. A really fast castle, okay? And we get to a castle drop as soon as we hit castle age. That's the basic idea. And then, of course, we make the unit that doesn't cost food. So do the standard Dark Age. I'm going to play a little slower so you guys can follow up. The sheep scouting is not the most important. It's also important to note that you have to learn deer with the strategy. This is the first weakness of it. This is not a crazy weakness, because nowadays deer luring is quite popular. It's quite meta. And I know at lower elos, if you guys can't lure deer, don't worry too much about it. You can still beat the strategy without luring deer. But to do this strategy, you basically have to lure deer. I also want to highlight that I will show you guys the best way to do this strat. If anyone is doing anything different than this, they are doing a weaker version of it. And that will happen. It will be the case. But just know that if you lose to a weaker version, there's things you could have done better to win that game, for sure. This really good version, if you make even one mistake, or sometimes even if you don't make a mistake, you can actually lose to it if you're not prepared to counter it. So I'm showing you guys the best version of it. If you face a weaker version, just try your best and try to use the same method on your game. Watch your own rec, try to use the same method I'm showing you here to try to find out what you could have done better. So we're going to lure deer. Again, you need all 3 deer for this to be effective. 3 on wood. Doesn't really matter though. That's not the important part. The important part is that we actually mine stone at around pop 20. And this is the second key weakness of the strategy. And this is also where you can see it coming. Because a big part of this, and I'll talk about it at the end, is whether you know what's coming or whether you don't know what's coming. This is a very, very important weakness or important point to differentiate. So yeah, like I said, the weakness of the strat is that you have to take stone at around pop 20. And this is where you can actually scout it to know if it's coming. So here, we just make a house. We go 6 on berries. I'm not going to obsess over the numbers because, again, this is not a guide on how to do this. This is really a guide on how to stop it. But I will show you guys the build in case you want to try it yourself, which I don't encourage. But sometimes if you're having trouble against it, just trying it out yourself and then seeing what people do against you is a good way to learn as well. Again, don't want to encourage you abuse this, but doing it once or twice to understand it is not necessarily the worst idea ever. All right, so now we do a standard build. Again, don't stress too much over the numbers. Bring those guys in. The idea is we need to have a really fast castle age, and then we also need to be able to afford a castle. And we're not going to take any gold to do that, and that's where the market abuse comes in. But like I said, it's not market abuse where if you nerf the market, this build is not possible. The market actually plays a very, very small role in this build. So now you get a second house, and now you can start transitioning over to berries. We'll get our third year in. We're going to do it 23 plus 2. Obviously, look at the stone. And by the way, a lot of these guys, if they have a bad stone, like if their main stone is bad, if they have a back secondary stone, even if it's far, they'll take it. Just to be safe. Their stone needs to be safe, which, like I said, is part of the weakness of the strat. The fact that they need the fact that they need stone. It is worth mentioning as well that not every variation of the strategy needs stone. Some, like Romans, don't. They go into Scorpion Siege, maybe with Knight, like Scorpion, 1 stable, or just 1 barrack spear, and like a couple rams is what they do. That's like the basic concept, basically. So here, usually the last 3 builds are going to send them to stone. Or the last 4. Depends on what you want to do. And that's it. So I found everything. I just want to make sure that I found all my sheep. I think I did. I'll just double check. Now we'll go to stone. I noticed that very little on wood. This is part of the build as well. Like, you don't need a lot on wood. The whole idea is they want to FC and then go straight into a castle unit. They don't need any wood for production buildings. So keep in mind, this is an important time. 7:30. If you scout their stone at 7:30 or around, you can see if they're going for the strat or not. This is assuming that they're on this correct, like, top tier builder. Again, if they're doing anything less than this or worse than this, it's going to be easier for you to stop it. And they usually have to loom and then go up. This is the very basic concept of this build. Again, you absolutely need to do all the steps that I showed you here, which is lure deer, take stone at sometime around this. You're done. AI is so bad. And I might be missing sheep here, actually. And yeah, this is like the bare bones. So you don't take gold. This is why your gold position actually just doesn't matter. Just gonna wait. Am I missing sheep? Just gonna mark a polo real quick. Okay, I'm not missing. Okay, cool. I just want to double check. So here at the end of the sheep, you can send a couple more to berries, or you can send a bunch to stone. In fact, you have to do like this. And you can also take some wood, some shaggy trees. Send a bunch to stone. And the whole idea is now the market will get you the rest. And here in this build, you can actually sell a bit of stone as well because you're mining it. And I will talk about some of the strengths of this build as well. The fact that we're on stone means that if you get rushed with archers, you can make a tower. And this is huge. This is really important. This is why this build is actually pretty good. Because it has some defensive tools available as well. You also don't need a mining camp on gold, so you have less area to defend. So here we're going to go ahead and make our buildings. Very important to do it with not food vills. You want to make it with wood vills. And they will do the same here. So make it anywhere. It doesn't really matter where. So you make both of the buildings. And they want to buy 100 food. So you have to make sure you have... They make 2 vills. And you want to make sure you have... 700 food. That's like the number you're aiming. Because they want to sell stone, buy 100 food only, and then go up. And they sell maybe some wood sometimes as well. Depends on what they have. And the vills that come out, it doesn't really matter where they go. As long as you make sure you have enough stone And when you hit the castle H, you make the castle. That's the idea. So there we go. And we're up. So this is the basic concept of the build. Now they still have the 9 on stone, and this is their setup right now. They don't get the gold at all until Castle Age. They're also not going to get any eco upgrades. In this case, we have the free wood upgrade, but you know, they wouldn't get eco upgrades. They're not going to get horse call. They're not going to do anything like that. Sometimes they even cut vil production because it's an all-in. So here you continue taking the food until the berries run out. We don't make a single farm because, again, that slows us down from the all-in. It's very degenerate. And here, the important timings to know is that they're going to hit Castle Age around 1430, something like that, okay? This is important because this means that you have you hit feudal usually around like 9 minutes when doing a feudal rush. You have around 5 minutes to do something. If you can't do damage in those 5 minutes, then they're going to get to Castle Age, they're going to drop the castle, and you're going to be kind of screwed. Okay, so these are the 5 minutes where we need to do something. Now, if you try to archer rush them, this is the problem. They just make a tower. They can even make 2 towers. And the more you slow yourself down to put pressure on them, the more they're kind of fine, delaying themselves a little bit because you're also delaying yourself. This is what the guy in the Reddit post was referencing. And this is, I'll talk about it at the end of the build. I'm trying to finish the build first, and then I'll talk about all these things. So keep that in mind that they have extra stone here, you can see, to actually make defensive towers. If you rush them with scouts, they could make a barracks, or they can just wall in their stuff. Okay, and they have the res to do all this. This is not hard at all. Look how much res they've got. All right, so once they get the stone needed, they're gonna go ahead and make a castle. Where? On their main gold. This is so important because after they make the castle, and they can make it with literally all their villas, it doesn't matter. After they make the castle, then they go into gold, and then you'll see just how strong their position actually is. They've got gold and wood safe. They always take wood near their gold if possible. If not, they just secure their gold. Because now feudal units cannot kill this anymore, and they have a unique unit available. And this is where the all-in part starts. Now they can either cut those or continue making. Quite frankly, I don't think it actually matters, but you know, if they want, they'll make like a barracks and go for bloodlines, for example. And here they'll just do whatever. They just take, you know, gold with all their villas, wood with the rest, and they start making a round by. And then they can go for a forward siege if they want to. I'm going to show you just what they're looking for here. At this point, it really depends on what the game is. So if you want to go forward siege, you actually can afford it. It's really crazy, but you can afford it. If you want to go, you know, barracks for whatever reason, you know, barracks, bloodlines. I don't think they prioritize bloodlines, but if you want, you probably can afford it. But I think usually it's forward siege or monastery, something like that, and they just make the unit. Now, the unit they're going for is always some insanely strong unit that doesn't cost food. Like a Rambai does not die to any feudal age units. Maybe skirms and archers can hit it, but it has 5 range and it's on a horse with 60 HP and 1 pierce armor. It's not dying to range units. And then if they mix in siege, don't die to wolf. If they mix in siege, then you're really cooked if you're stuck in feudal. And so this, if they get to this position, you're kind of screwed if you're stuck in feudal age. Okay, just another important part to note. And we'll talk about all this when we talk about how to counter it. Okay. So this is what they get to. They're spamming around by. They can spam forward siege. You can't stop their vil. If you stonewall, they can send a petard forward. So stonewalling doesn't work either. You might think that's an easy option. It's not. It doesn't work. It might buy you some time sometimes if you have a good map, but usually it just won't work. And this is what they're getting into. They're getting to Rambai plus siege, maybe monks, and they're going to all in you. And this is exactly the strategy that you need to be careful. So we're going to resign now. And I'm going to talk about all the different points, if you guys have been paying attention up until now. Talk about all the different weaknesses of the strategy and also how to counter it, okay? So this is the actual good part of the video now. Up until now, it's been painful. Okay, so number 1 weakness has to lure deer, and it shows you its hand at around 7 minutes 30 when it has to take stone. The other weakness is that, let me just show you the stats here. The other weakness is that up until 14 minutes, it does nothing, okay? It's only on defense. It does literally nothing. So you have until 14 minutes where you can do whatever you want. And yes, the more we try to do, like pressure and stuff, the more we're going to delay ourselves on defense. But the more we're delaying their strat and hurting their strat as well. So there's a balance that you need to strike, and we're going to talk about that. But first, we're going to talk about the easy stuff. If you know this is coming, 100%. Like if I were to face Red Phosphor on the ladder, for example, And I know that equal, like regular gameplay, he's not really going to have a chance. So he's for sure going to go for his strat. This is what he's known for. This is what he's best at. It's very easy to counter the strat if you know what's coming. All you have to do is one of two things. You either go for a fast castle yourself into a counter. For example, if he's on Burmese and he's going to go fast castle run by, and I know this guy's got the stone or whatever, I just fast castle myself and I go straight into monks. 2-3 monasteries, and I go just monks to counter the run by. If that's not an option, I have a bad civ with monks. Or if I didn't want to counter it with fast castle, I can counter it with fast feudal, but I go forward, not with towers, because I don't think towers necessarily works. It could if you can tower the stone. And you know that both stones are, towered, and they can't touch it. That's one approach. But you just go forward and you go archers from the front. This is really, really good. So you go really fast up, send 2 bills forward, make a range. Then you make the barracks at home, you send 1 spear forward, and you make the range next to the opponent's base, and you get fast archers. This way you can hit the stone before they can make towers. And if they make a tower, then you're going to go to the next area, and they wouldn't have time to mine enough stone to make another tower. And if they do, their castlage will be delayed drastically. And if you hit them in that pre-14-minute window, they struggle a lot. Especially if you hit them in the pre-11-minute window, which is before they click up the castlage. That is like the window where they're most vulnerable, the 9 to 11-minute window, okay? And if you go forward, you can easily hit that window. If you do archers from home, you're not hitting the window, which is why you guys struggle dealing with the strat. So those are the 2 ways to counter this if you know what's coming. To recap, it's either fast castle into counter units or fast feudal into forward range with spears, archers, plus 1 or 2 towers. That's the way to do it. Okay, now the hard part. This is where people actually struggle with the strat. This is where I can struggle with the strat as well, when you don't know what's coming. Imagine a player, let's say, for example, me or Viper, a well-rounded player, maybe Leary, any top player, right? That can do the strategy as good as Red Phosphor, okay? Imagine that player that you don't know what's coming. He's a top player, and he can just randomly pull it out, and he just beats you with it. And if you're not ready for it, you're going to die to it. That is the scariest part of the strategy. And this happens all the time at lower elo. Obviously, it's not like the pro player, but it's a guy you don't know. You don't know who you're playing against in like lower elo. You don't know their reputation. You don't know if they're going to do it. This is where it gets hard. But luckily, I have some tips for you, and I have some really effective strategies to actually counter this, even if you don't necessarily know what's coming. Okay, so step 1, remember we talked about how there's only a few civs that can actually do this effectively? That's step 1. Knowing that it's at least a possibility, okay? That's step 1 to actually, like, thinking or knowing that your opponent is doing it, knowing if it's a possibility. For example, there are some civs, like, for example, Byzantine. They can't do this, like, at all. They don't have an eco bonus. They don't have a strong unit in early castlage that costs no food. They can't do this at all. So when you're playing a civ like Byzantine, your guard can be completely down. You're completely safe from this. They might do other stuff, but they won't do this. So if you're playing against like the 5 to 10 civs that can do this and do it effectively, then you want to be on high alert from the start of your game, thinking that your opponent could go for this. The second thing I want you guys to make sure of is, number 1, you can either lure deer or scout yourself, it doesn't matter, but be aware if your opponent is luring deer. If your opponent is luring deer, that's the second checkpoint. If your opponent lures deer, and you can tell this if you see them luring deer, or if you see their score is lower than you. If you're scouting and they're luring deer, their score will be lower. If you're luring deer and they're luring deer, you know this because your scores will be similar. So you can always know if your opponent is luring deer. So if they're luring deer, it's second checkpoint. The third checkpoint, if the first 2 are true, you just scout their main stone at around 7:30. And you can see when they're going to stone, and you can see that they're doing the strategy. If it's not a stone mining civilization, like Romans that don't need a castle, then then the stone is not a giveaway. Instead, what you want to look at is when they click up the feudal age. If you guys don't know, when someone clicks up the feudal age, their score drops by 50 points. Now, you have to be aware of this. You have to be vigilant. But if you are aware of it, you can see when they click up the feudal age. And if you see their score drop by 50, you look at your population, you look at your situation. If you're at 23 pop and you're also fast casting for whatever reason, and you see your opponent going down 50 score at that point, then you know, okay, he's also fast casting. If you're going for feudal rush, you'll be like halfway to feudal at like 19 pop, and your opponent would be 23 pop, and he just clicked up. You'll be halfway to feudal, you see a score going down, you know he's fast casting. So you know from that position, you can just send a vil forward, and you can do the counter, which is forward archers. And remember, the barracks is at home in that strategy either way. So the barracks is always at home, so you're not missing anything. You just make the barracks at home, send 2 vills forward, get your you get to your opponent's base, you make the forward range, you send 2 spears forward, and you have the perfect counter. All right, then you try to target his stone, target his wood, whatever, and berries, whatever you can hit, but usually stone if you can. Okay, so those are the 3 tells that you can do. 4 tells. Stone is one, and the score is another. There's 4 tells that you can do to see if your opponent is going for this, and this has nothing to do with your opponent's reputation or whether you think he's going to do it or not. Nothing to do with that. It's to do with things that you can tangibly, recognize. Okay, now let's talk about what you're actually looking to do when you're trying to counter this, and how do you go about putting that pressure. So in my opinion, the 2 biggest weaknesses of the strat is that they need enough stone for a castle, and they're not on gold, so they can't effectively buy stone if they don't have the 650 from mining it. So targeting the stone is the biggest weakness. This is the point of the strat where I think it's the most vulnerable. If they can't get enough stone for the castle, they immediately fold, they immediately die. So targeting the stone is the #1 essential thing, and you can do this with either army or a tower. If you tower the stone and they counter tower, you want to go around and tower it from the other side, or go around with units and harass it from the other side. If that's not a possibility, then you want to either send vills forward and try to rush it down and try to continue preventing them from taking stone, or you avoid that plan, or you abandon that plan and you go hit their other resources and hope that you do enough. But targeting the stone is the #1 thing to pressure. And if you do the forward range like I talked about, you can easily take them off stone, and you can easily end their strategy, or end the game. You win the game right off the bat. So that's the first major weakness, is that it needs 650 stone, and it's not mining gold, so it can't use the market. The second major weakness is the fact that it needs to actually place the castle. And this is not a really big weakness, because they can spam it with 25 vills and it's fine, but it's still worth considering. They have no units until they get the castle down. If they place the castle, you go with all of your army and try to pick off as many vills as possible. If you can deny the castle, you win. If you can't, you'll kill as many vills as possible, giving you the best chance. Okay. In this situation that you don't win the game on the spot, how do you go from there? The way to proceed is you want to rush the castle as fast as possible. I don't believe full feudal works against this. I don't believe continued pressure once they have a castle can do anything. That's not a plan. The way to do it is to rush the castle. You want to get all your vills off of, stop farming, send your vills to gold, and you market abuse. And remember, they only bought 100 food, so the price for food is still good. So this leaves room for, this is our counter market abuse. This is why I don't think market nerf does anything, because we're using it too. We send vills to gold, 10, 15 vills. You can pull off wood, you can pull off berries. You just stop making farms, send from the TC to gold, and you just try to buy yourself up. When you get the castlage, you have things to defend. You have monks, you have siege, you have maybe if you have leftover archers, you have crossbow, bodkin. Your eco, even if you market abuse, will be decent, because you're going to have more vills working on the way up to castle. So you'll be able to afford these things. So you have the way to counter the strat. If you know what's coming, it's very easy. You have the way to counter the strat if you don't know what's coming, by using the 4 criteria that you can clearly see when you're playing the game. And you also have the plan C. Even if you can't stop the guy from getting the castle, you can still win if you market abuse and get to a counter unit. All right, that's a really good skill set. If you watch this video front to back, really good skill set you can have to counter the strategy. And the last thing I want to talk about in this video is the concept in the Reddit post of, oh, if I tower him, I'm delaying myself, so I feel like it's futile. It's not futile if you kick him off stone, but if he already has enough stone for the castle, then it is futile. You see what I mean? So it's all about hitting the right timing windows. And if you go back to it here, it's very crucial that it's pre 10 minutes, pre 11 minutes, I would say, where you can hit them where they're super exposed. Then in the next 3 minutes, they can make defensive towers, and they can make defensive spearmen sometimes. That's when they're kind of exposed, but they can also defend themselves. If you still can't deny the castle, then you try to all-in yourself by going heavy onto gold and getting to castlage. And that is the best way to counter the strat. Last thing I'll talk about is you can just see clearly, guys, that they're not making vills. They have such a bare bones economy. They only have food and gold. And especially at lower elo, they're not going to be playing perfectly with the army. If you just have something to defend yourself, if you're not just stuck in feudal, if you have something to defend yourself and you can just hold on, you don't need to counterattack, just hold on, you will be in a better position. They don't even have stone to make a forward castle usually. They usually abandon the stone. And so as long as you hold the initial pressure, you can be in a good position to push back and actually win the game, even if it's looking bleak. All right, that's going to do it, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like the video, share it with people struggling, and struggling to beat this. And let me know in the comments if you have any extra tips that I might have missed. I feel like this is a very detailed guide. I made sure to really go into in-depth. This is exactly what I would use myself to try to take care of this strategy. Actually, wait. Last thing. It's a secret bonus tip. If you open stable and you didn't see the score jump or anything like that, you didn't see the score jump, you only realized late that he's fast castling. In that case, you want to just try to do the same thing, but with scouts, and send forward vills right away to tower the stone. That's the way. You have to take the stone out in that case. So that's what you have to do. If you're going scouts and you messed up the 4 tips that I gave you, you just couldn't see that he's doing it for whatever reason, you just go scouts, send vills forward right away as soon as you realize your mistake, and try to tower the stone. That's the way to do it with scouts, because you need something right away to take out a stone, and scouts can actually dive towers. So even if you counter towers, you can easily kill them with your own scouts. So a little secret bonus tip. Now, thank you for watching for real. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video. And these are exactly how I do my Patreon videos as well. So if you guys like this concept, this in-depth theory, I have a lot of other videos you can check out on my Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description for that if you're interested. And I always make sure to do my research beforehand, because if I'm going to put something up that you have to pay for, I'm making sure it's at least top quality first, so you know you're going to get the best information. If you can afford it, you can go for that. If not, the YouTube videos are just as good in a lot of cases. If you want to catch me live, check out my Twitch channel. Link in the description for that as well. Thanks for watching. Good luck out there on the ladder, guys. I just actually hit my elo high, so I'm feeling pretty good on the rank ladder. I can't show it, damn it. I can't even flex in a YouTube video. So I'm feeling good on the ladder, and I want you guys to feel good as well. And I don't want your experience to be ruined by the fast castles. And if you are a fast castle player, you're completely allowed to do that. It's part of the game. It is what it is. And at least now you might face some tougher competition. So there you go. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below as well. I'll try to get to them as much as I can. Peace.